Let's begin then with Section 1, or Article 1, I'm sorry. Article 1, this is the very first words after the preamble. Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. That's the end of Section 1. So all legislative, all lawmaking power herein granted. Now these are the states granting power to the federal government. The federal government was created by the states, even though the federal government now is so big and the states are practically mere appendages of the federal government in many ways. At the beginning, the federal government was just a baby, and the states created it. Those 13 states, the original colonies, created it, or these 57 representatives. Okay, all lawmaking authority is vested, that the states grant, is vested in the Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. So they've got the lawmaking authority, and they've got it with a Senate and a House of Representatives. We'll see, what that involves. The point I want to make here is all lawmaking body, all lawmaking powers herein granted shall be vested in Congress. So what about executive orders? Executive orders are where the president says, well, let's do this. Affirmative action is an executive order. There are no affirmative action laws. There are affirmative action executive orders where the president, the chief executive, we'll get to that, issues some executive order. And we do something. With affirmative action, it's the courts too. But there are no, as far as I know, there are no laws upholding or instituting affirmative actions, basically decisions by probably the Supreme Court. We'll get to that. But it's not just executive orders. Another good example is wars. And wars are you declare war. That's a law. We haven't declared war. We haven't had a war by the United States since World War II. But we've been fighting. What are those? Those are executive order wars. Well, the executive can just make war just like that? Yeah. So that, I think, we can see right off. The very first words of the Constitution are violated. But it's not just executive orders, too, and this may be even greater. It's administrative rules and regulations. In here we'll get to how a law is passed, but these agencies, federal government agencies, states have it too, but federal government agencies can make a regulation. A bureaucrat, an unelected person sitting in an office somewhere can say, okay, the speed limit will be, or it could be the EPA, or it could be the Chamber of Commerce. They can just say, or not the Chamber of Commerce, but the Department of Commerce. They can just say, this is a regulation. This is a rule, and you better follow that rule, because rules and regulation have the force and effect of laws, according to the Supreme Court. But this said that all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress. So all lawmaking authority, all lawmaking power is vested in the Congress, not the president with his executive orders, and not some bureaucracy somewhere with rules and regulations. And rules and regulations are as big. When you look at the CFRs, the rules and regulations, and the U.S. Code, the rules and regulations are just as big as the code. So that's not a small thing. The chief executive's power is clearly violates. Where do they get this? Now, some people say the Congress passed a law giving its war-making authority to the president. Well, they didn't really. There's certain things, and they got to tell the chief executive. I think they passed some law. The chief executive could authorize force without congressional approval for 90 days or something like that. And I guess Congress can write that law, can give away some of its legislative power. Okay, that's section 1. We'll get to section 2 next.